what would you call the act of whipping a man to the point where he has heavy blood loss, to the point that he's scarring? Would you call it abuse? Would you call it physical assault? Would you even call it a disfigurement? For the Fulani tribe in Africa, it is a coming of age ceremony in which young men have to prove themselves worthy of their wives by standing twixt of other older men. As we know, cultural traditions are very much part of our lives. For some, it is the focal point to their very living. Yet, what differentiates a good, proper tradition to that of an unhealthy one? Well, it is hard to say that one tradition is correct to another, because all of us have different aspects, different beliefs, different cultures. Yet, can we justify our hesitations to interfere with these dangerous traditions when there are countless number of people suffering and dying because of these traditions? Cultural traditions that inflict bodily harm or mental pain are the same as any pain-inflicting action. These traditions cannot be justified because they are cultural or they have a certain prestige to them. Because we cannot allow ourselves to be blinded by the mystification of other traditions. As we know, there is a common ancient tradition that we must be familiar with. It is called the Chinese foot binding tradition, in which young children from the age of 4 to 7 have their foot bound in a human way, in which this is your foot. Pretend you have your shoe size is 8. Mine is 8, so it's 8. And then for the ideal size of the shoe size, it's 3 inches. Can you imagine your feet being bent and forced in a position in where your bones are broken in a way to mold that shoe, to mold your foot to fit into that 3-inch shoe? Can you say that the actions of tradition is justified when the young girl is unable to walk, when her foot is deformed in a manner that it is no longer a foot, but just a pretty shoe? Can you call that tradition, or can you call that mutilation? There's another tradition called the Sati culture, founded in India, in which a woman who has recently lost her husband is forced or voluntarily allowed to jump into her husband's funeral fire. She allows herself to be burned to ashes while she's still breathing. Can you imagine the pain? Can you imagine suffering? Can you call that tradition? Or do you call that suicide? As we know, there are many reasons that we allow these traditions to occur. One of them is superstition. Another might be illogical reasoning. But how much is that illogical reasoning worth? That superstition worth is it worth your child's life? Somewhere in India, there is a practice called the baby dropping ritual, in which an infant is dropped from a 15-feet building, hanging from the building, only saved by the safety net, which is a spreading sheet. Is that allowed? Is that a tradition? I do not believe such traditions should be allowed. My stand is that these traditions should be stopped, and one way to do this is the only way to do it, which is prevention and banmanship. These traditions should be banned if only people were aware of those situations. These are not merely TV shows. These are not merely amusements. These are not merely mystifying cultures. These are human lives that are being endangered, all for the sake of tradition, all for the sake of culture. But is that culture worth it if your brothers and sisters, your husbands and wives, your children are being sacrificed for it? Can you say that these traditions are really what they should be? As we all know, the Chinese foot binding, as I said before, Around an estimate of 2 billion women have suffered through it. But how many years had it taken for it to be stopped? How many years had it been taken to be banned and illegalized? I would say 1,000 years. Can you imagine yourself in that era, in that time, having your foot bound, unable to say anything because society declares that for women, they have to have small feet to be pretty, to be acknowledged, to be worthy? Can you say that is tradition? I would say that's discrimination. But more importantly, for these traditions to be banned and prevented, one must first understand that we are not simply outsiders. We are not simply watchers of other people's lives. We have to interfere. We have to act now. That is why I would like to say that my stand is for some traditions, no matter how cultural they are, they should be stopped or changed.